All right, hello there everybody. It's Tuesday morning. Todd Gutner in the weather office. We're going to try to do this every morning leading up to the weekend and the potential impacts from Hurricane Lee. It's been quite a weather week. Obviously, it's been quite a weather summer. Haven't had much sunshine, hasn't been the best of summers. Just want to quickly point out we once again have some downpours out there this morning. I do think they'll slowly dwindle in coverage as we head to the afternoon. So your afternoon, while not very sunny, will at least get a little better and start to dry out a little bit. So if you have any of those plans this afternoon, you should probably be in good shape. We do have another round of rain expected, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, and then 2 dry days and days where the weather will cooperate in case we need to really get going with precautions from any of this tropical stuff coming our way from Lee. All right, so let's talk about Lee. First of all, there he or she is, Lee. You know, I guess that could be called a he or a she, although I think it's just an it. Anyway, winds are 115 miles per hour, which still puts it into a Category 3, although a little bit less intensity than yesterday. It's hasn't interacted with any land yet. It's just been open ocean. You know, these are the windwards, these are the leewards. You got the Greater Antilles, here are the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos down here, and Bermuda. Bermuda's up there. Also interesting to note, there's another hurricane out here. We actually have 2. That one's name is Margot. Way out, not quite to the Azores, but way out in the open Atlantic, and it's just going to kind of fizzle out there. So we're just watching this guy. The track from the Hurricane Center, and I don't think the 8 o'clock advisory is in yet. Let's see. I don't believe it is in yet, but let's throw the track up. So we got a Category 3 right now, south of Bermuda by a little less than 600 miles, but it's only moving at 7 miles per hour right now. Hurricane Center expects it to maintain intensity for another 24 to 36 hours, and then start to fall off with that intensity as it moves north and encounters some colder waters in the Atlantic. Now, there's the official track from the Hurricane Center. So this is Saturday morning, early Saturday morning at 2 a.m., south and east of Nantucket, Cape Cod, still a Category 1 hurricane. And then because it's moving so slowly in these colder waters, that's actually a good thing for us and for our friends over in Canada. It's going to weaken the storm quite a bit. And it'll be at the worst, probably a strong tropical storm, or may even start to transition to a regular area of low pressure, but could be like a nor'easter, a really powerful nor'easter at that point. And as you can see, it's heading up to about Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. This is early Sunday morning, 3 a.m. Nova Scotia. That's where the Hurricane Center has it making some sort of landfall. In that case, if it makes landfall there, that takes the worst case scenario for us right off the table. Not a direct hit from any kind of tropical system. So that would be great news for us. The worst place to be with a landfalling tropical system is just to the right of the core, because that's where the strongest winds are. You've got the forward speed and you've got the counterclockwise circulation. So that's where the strongest winds are, and all that water piling up against the land. We call that storm surge, and that's always some dangerous stuff. I do want to point out, though, this is what we call the cone of uncertainty. It's this daunting sounding termed thing, but basically landfall could still happen even in Maine. Even though the most likely spot is here or even off to the right, there's still a chance, small one, that we could have a landfalling system in Maine. So that's something to consider. How confident are we that it's going to stay to our east and not be a worst case scenario? This is what we call the spaghetti plot. It's basically all of the various computer models and their perturbations that we look at, and we plot them in a line, and it kind of looks like a bowl of spaghetti, you know, or spaghetti that isn't cooked yet, something like that in this case. And as you can see, almost all of them are clustered over Nova Scotia. There are a couple of outliers, and that's why there's still a small chance, and we can't completely pull it off the table, that we see a landfall. But most likely landfall would be somewhere over in Nova Scotia, and this would be Saturday into Saturday night. So there's that right there. So that's the latest info, the latest guidance pointing and showing us where the track will go. So what does that mean for us? Well, first of all, we are going to see some pretty dangerous waves and big ones. Around the center of that hurricane as it goes north, there could be like 30 to 40 foot waves over there near Sable Island and south of Nova Scotia. Sometimes Saturday into Saturday night, the largest waves will be getting into the Gulf of Maine and propagating towards our coastline. So if you go to the colors in here, you've got some oranges and some reds that are out in the mouth of the Gulf of Maine, and then working there where closer to the coast, you have some yellows. It's pretty much all 10 feet or higher. I mean, it's not out of the question that we see some 20-footers out there. And as far as breaking waves, probably 10 to 15 footers. I mean, that's really big stuff. So in that case, it's not like we've never seen that before. It happens in nor'easters. It's happened in past tropical systems as they've swung on by. But I don't know that we've seen waves that large this summer. We did have them last winter with a couple of those nor'easters, specifically the one right before Christmas. I think that was December 23rd, that Friday. That storm was wicked. The wind, the power outages we saw, the coastline got battered. And our coast looks like it's going to get battered again. Thankfully, our tides are astronomically low. They're astronomically low. They're not at the highest point of the month. We've got a new moon, and they're running at about 9.5 feet. So we can handle a little bit of surge. But waves that are 10, 15 feet, they're going to hit. They're going to batter. They're going to have a lot of power with them. And they could, mess around with the beaches or any stairs or walkways that are down there. There could be some rearranging going on there. So it's not like we're not going to go unscathed along the coastline. We'll also see some really bad rip currents too. Thankfully, the weather doesn't look favorable for beach goers. You're not going to want to be craving to be at the beach. So that's good. And people probably won't be in the water too much at all. A couple of other things that I want you to consider. Even though a direct hit is unlikely at this time, there probably will still be a period of rain and wind. The magnitude of the rain and wind is what we need to figure out at this point. We're getting more and more confident that a direct hit and worst case scenario is coming off the table. So now we got to start to pick apart what is actually going to happen. The waves, for sure. We know that's the coast is going to get battered. But how much rain are we going to see? How strong is the wind going to be? Because in either case, in both cases, the thresholds are lower. When it comes to rain, flooding thresholds are much lower. Think about how much rain we've seen this entire summer. We've had a lot of it. Our rivers are already high. Our streams are already high. The ground is saturated. Things are waterlogged. So if we get quite a bit of rain, say it's an inch to 3 inches, we could very well deal with some flooding, and our rivers and streams will be rising, and that will be a problem because our threshold is already, so low. As far as the wind goes and our power outage threshold, that will also be low, much lower than what you would see in the winter when the leaves are off trees and the ground is frozen solid and kind of acts as like cement for the root systems of trees. In this case, the leaves are all on the trees. I mean, they're not even turning yet, those leaves. We don't see any sign of fall at this point, any sign of color in autumn. So all leaves are on trees, and that adds weight, and it also acts as sails. So it's not going to be the same sort of like 60 miles per hour wind or higher to get power outages. It's going to be lower. What is that number? It's a little tough to say, but I would think that if we get gusts that are 40, 45 miles per hour, we might start to see some power outages with that. Because the other factor here is that the ground isn't frozen solid right now, this time of the year. The ground is super waterlogged, super saturated with water. So it would be easier for a root system to get compromised and start to break up, and easier for a tree to topple. So those are all things that we're starting to factor in, and we'll start honing in on whether the power outage threat is going to be really high or it's just going to be low to moderate or marginal, whether the flooding threat is really high or just low to marginal, kind of like what we've been seeing all summer long with these drainage issues from all these heavy downpours. So that's kind of the latest from the weather office on this Tuesday morning. The 8 o'clock advisory should be coming in real soon. We'll see if the track wobbles to the left or wobbles to the right. Any kind of wobble to the left obviously means, the stakes go up a little bit for us here in Maine. But as of this video and as of this time and everything that I've looked at and seen, the worst case scenario is getting smaller and smaller, and that's a direct hit from a landfalling tropical system. We'll do another one of these tomorrow morning with the latest, and continue to follow all of our social media platforms. You can follow us on YouTube. We're constantly throwing updates that way. We've got a blog on our website right now that you can go get a read from. And there's lots of good pictures on there and images on there to give you a better idea of what's going on. That blog will likely be updated later today, and I'll update it again tomorrow morning. So that's the latest. At this moment, you probably don't have to do a whole lot of, readiness, getting ready for this. Unless you have a boat, unless you're in a marina, you have some sort of interest on the waterfront, it may be best to just be safe rather than sorry down the line. Chances are that worst case scenario is off the table and things will be okay. But if this thing wobbles back to the west a little, that puts all of the coastline in more serious jeopardy. And with the season winding down anyway, we're at mid-September, your kids are playing soccer, your weekends are full again. You don't have as much time to get out on the water and have fun and go fishing and all that good stuff. Maybe it's time to just put a bow on the season and wrap it up. Or you can just dip it back in, after the storm passes for the last few weeks until we get to mid-October when you got to bring it out for good. So that's all for now. I will check in with you again with another video update tomorrow morning. See ya.